So today we've got the leader of the Western Isles Council, Paul Steele. Hello, Paul.
Hi there, how are you doing?
So you are the leader of, now how do you say it in properly?
In Gaelic, it's Corrin and Eilean Shear.
That's it. So this beautiful island here of Uist, and we are installing mobile infrastructure into here. Now, as the leader of a council, what does that mean for you and your community?
It's one of the key elements of living in the island is the fact that we've got the connectivity to connect to the outside world. For us, it's transport that usually gets all the headlines, but I think the digital infrastructure is just as vital to actually being able to live and work in these islands.
That's interesting because I think that's a really important point. We often see that the physical infrastructure is what gets the focus, but digital is almost the sort of glue of everything else. And I think as we were talking just before this, you were talking about sort of health and people's ability to access hospitals. And you mentioned a 15-minute neighbourhood, but obviously that's not very easy in a place like this.
Absolutely, it's an aspiration, I think, for people to have these 15-minute neighbourhoods. But in terms of being able to access healthcare, like you mentioned, I think if we didn't have access to near me is one of the things that we use in the Western Isles. So you're able to do remote appointments with your consultant or your specialist doctor. So I think it is really important that we have the connectivity that allows us to do that.
So the virtual world almost brings that 15-minute neighbourhood, even though it isn't physically, it is digitally.
Yeah, it is digitally, yeah. The other thing it does, I suppose, is it allows, because our islands are quite vast. You know, from one end to the other is about 150, 200 miles from one end to the other. So trying to provide services as a council is not the easiest. Education specifically. So what we did a few years back was we invested in an online digital platform, eSchool. We developed it ourselves with support from the Scottish Government. So we were able to provide like maths classes from Stornoway or from Benbecca to schools in Barra.
Obviously, we have the four islands here. We have Stornoway up the top, North Uist, then Benbecula, South Uist, and then as you say, Barra.
Yeah, so I think one of the small positives we took from COVID was the fact that we had this in place. So we were actually able to continue our learning. So I've got two small children, so the fact that they were able to carry on their schooling from home wasn't great. I call this the home guard teachers. You know, we were taking the role of teachers, but you know, absolutely. But having that support from the actual teaching staff through the digital connectivity that was put in place was key, and it helped it across the whole of Scotland. And I think it's something we're hoping to develop with the government to.
Another thing we were discussing just before we went on camera here was sort of population and maintaining and attracting people here. What does digital connectivity do for that?
Again, it's about I suppose retaining population is key, but also attracting new population. So one of my neighbours up the road, he works for a large multinational company. He's head of their marketing services, and he's based in Uist, and he's able to do that because he has got the digital connectivity to work from a remote island in the Outer Hebrides.
So it's not just about the kids being able to play online, it's actually about retaining high talent on the islands.
It is, definitely. It's about enabling people to work in different sectors, because when you live on an island, it's not easy to have different sectors of the economy coming here and working. Obviously import export is a huge issue, but if your import export is digital and you have the infrastructure in place, then you can do that. You can operate online.
Wow. So, and these ones going in, again, one thing I always like to ask, you sit there with as a councillor, we hear a lot of stories about people not liking the infrastructure that goes in, but obviously I think that the fundamental point is to have that infrastructure and that signal. You need that mast there. I mean, what's the challenges you face on that side of things?
I wouldn't say it was a challenge. I think the challenge, if there is one, would be the fact that people want better connectivity. So I think there's a willingness to accept, to get the better connectivity, you need the infrastructure in place. So I think it's seen as, people are asking actually, when are we going to be connected to the network? So having these masts and the relays put in is so important to being able to live and work in the Western Isles.
Wow, and you again, as you were talking, you said you could see this getting installed yesterday in Boisdale, Loch Boisdale, from your kitchen window, I think it was. I mean, what was your view as that was going in?
It was great. I mean, it's really interesting. So my children obviously were watching the helicopter back and forth across the bay, and the fact that they're able to install masts in such difficult locations. It's not an easy place to get to, up the top of the hills, across the moors and up. Quite high up near the top of the ridge. So yeah, it's really difficult, but just actually watching them backwards and forwards is fantastic, and the work that's gone into putting them in place is, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can show you some of that later. And just as inward investment, you know, it's. I think some people tend to the look is that these must go in, but actually that's quite a lot of investment going into the island. But then there's the subsidiary investment that comes off of that, the sort of economic goods and the social goods that can come from that.
Yeah, so I suppose not for you specifically at the moment, but we're looking at developing the renewable sector in Lewis. We are obviously looking in US as well, but kind of on the horizon there's going to be a lot of work, and having that digital connectivity is going to be key for maintaining and operating the turbines once they're up and running, connecting people to the grid, smart grids and all this kind of technology. Hopefully, with the improvements in infrastructure, the likes of smart metering is something that we'll be able to get involved in, because we have some of the highest fuel poverty in the UK. So being able to monitor your meter usage is going to be key, and it's not able to happen because the infrastructure isn't in place. So I think even the socio-economic benefits of that alone are useful, but also the fact that industry and other sectors of the economy are able to actually work in the islands. It's really, really important.
Well, no, I think that's hugely interesting, and it sort of helps the sustainability of populations and islands such as these. I mean, Paul, that's been really, really fascinating insight into not just the island of Uist, but the whole Western Isles, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.